All right, 101 students, welcome again to the wonderful soundstage of empty metal shelves. So right now I'm going to talk about perspectives in your research. And during last night's conversation, we talked a great deal about the topic of immigration in the United States, which is an excellent example topic for research because it is such a complicated topic with so many different perspectives and so many strong feelings. And with a topic like this, the most important thing to remember is that you need to look at perspectives that are not only different from your own and not only different from each other, but that have actual information about your specific focus. Okay? So, for example, let's say we wanted to do a paper looking at kind of the border crossings between the U.S. and Mexico. There are many folks out there who will say a lot of things on social media about this. Some folks that will say that immigrants are coming to the U.S. and taking jobs from citizens. All right, other folks will be saying that immigration is a really good thing, and that we need immigrants to harvest fruit and fill CNA roles at nursing homes. And something to be wary of is that there will be individuals who say these things who are not actually experts on immigration. Okay, so for example, myself, like I said, I am not an immigration expert. I have my own perspectives on immigration, but I don't have nearly enough background information to say for certain what effects immigration may have on the economy or on jobs or on wages or anything like that. As we saw in the example last night, I had a theory that the Great Recession of 2008 led to increased immigration to the U.S. And my theory was that when the U.S. economy declined, the global economy probably declined, and that probably led to more immigration to the U.S. We did that research, immediately found out that I was completely wrong. All right, following the Great Recession, immigration numbers actually declined, and so it's very important that if you have someone like me who then goes on and then pretends to have all the answers, that you're not using that as a source you're depending on. Okay, so look for sources that actually have direct experience or are using direct research. When we're talking about the CRAP test, look at that first A, authority. Now, with that, when we're talking different perspectives, all right, for a topic like this with immigration, definitely you would want the perspectives of immigrants. Now, this can cause some problems because undocumented immigrants, for very obvious reasons, are going to be hesitant to identify themselves as undocumented. Someone who is in the U.S. illegally is not going to out themselves on YouTube because they could be deported. And you might not know anyone who is undocumented, or if you do know someone, you may not know that they are undocumented. Someone who is a dreamer may have lived here their whole lives. They're essentially as American as I am, but doesn't have paperwork, and you might not know that, and you have no idea to even ask. And even if you did, it probably wouldn't come off as being very polite, and you wouldn't be able to identify them in your paper because of their own safety. So what you may have to do is simply find the best firsthand sources that are closest to what you're looking for. So for example, here in Normal, there's the Immigration Project. And so individuals working at the Immigration Project would be able to tell you about their experiences working with immigrants. And so the immigrants they're working with, whether they're documented or undocumented, are going to have some very common experiences of moving to a new country getting a sense of the land, trying to find employment, trying to find housing. And so those employees who are working with those individuals can give you some insights that are close to those perspectives. The next thing to bear in mind is when we're talking about immigration, there are immigrants coming to the U.S., but then there are also the perspectives of U.S. citizens. And one of the things that came up during the conversation last night is, there are no universal experiences. Okay, so for example, someone like me, I think immigration is a good thing for our economy, whereas there are other Americans who are seriously concerned that they may lose their jobs to, immigration. And so you would not want to use just one person as this is the view of American citizens, right? A steel worker in Pennsylvania is going to have a very different view of immigration from a community college adjunct professor like myself. And so you want to get those differing perspectives. Also, we talked about the fact that politicians and governmental department heads, they are also going to have their perspectives. And for example, we have presidential statements about immigration policies. We'll have statements from the head of Homeland Security or the head of Customs and Border Patrol. And when we think about those perspectives, this is where we really need to start thinking about the motivation of the person speaking. So remember that P for purpose in the CRAP test. Someone who is the president of the United States or someone who's running for president, there will be certain things about immigration that this person will never say, because saying something like that would turn off too many voters. Okay, so for example, you will never have a presidential candidate saying, "Oh, I support totally open borders," because many voters would immediately vote against that person. You will never have a presidential candidate say, "I believe in locking up every immigrant and deporting them right away," because even if that individual believed that, there would be too many voters who would immediately vote against that person. And one of the things to bear in mind is that news sources, depending on the source, can also have biases, one direction or another. And so the words that our government leaders are saying may be perceived very differently depending on who is reporting on that person. So for example, a conservative news outlet might cast a Democratic president as being too lenient on immigration, whereas a more liberal news source may cast a Republican president as being too harsh on immigration. And one of the things you have to look for is which news sources are showing the least biased. Or if there is a bias, you need to consider whether or not that bias is correct. So for example, when we are talking about the family separations, there were a lot of people in the media saying, "Oh, this media source is biased," or "that media source is biased." And the thing is that not all biases are wrong. So, in my eyes, taking a child from their family is simply wrong, regardless of the situation. And you would not be able to convince me that there is a situation where it is good to separate children and families. And so if I'm writing a paper, I would choose sources that follow this bias of mine, but that bias is coming down to how do we consider human rights? How do we consider what is best for families? What is right for just being part of humanity? And So you are not required to agree with all of your sources. I do not want you to agree with all of your sources. What I want you to do is find sources that you can analyze, evaluate, talk about. Now, continuing this example, like I said, I do not believe it's ever right to separate a child from their family. But there are individuals who do feel that this move was justified. And if I was going to write a paper about family separations, I would definitely need to research those sources. I would need to hear what those government officials said about the family separations, the motivations for it, the effects of it. And even though I strongly disagree with that policy that the government had, it would be important for me to accurately portray why that policy was put in place and why other individuals felt it was correct. Okay? But like I said, I would never agree with that policy. And so even though there is disagreement, as a researcher, it's important that I point out those other perspectives so that I can talk about why I disagree with them, so I can show that I actually understand them. Now, another thing that comes up is, you may not be aware of your own blind spots. One of the points that came up during last night's conversation was that, I mentioned that many undocumented immigrants do not feel comfortable going to the police. And we kind of talked about how, this could allow, violent criminals to, get away with things because their victims might be afraid of deportation and might not go to the police. But, one of your classmates pointed out correctly that there are many American citizens who are also afraid to go to the police. And so I had not thought about that at all in this discussion. And so this is why it's important to talk with a variety of people, a variety of perspectives. And, we can, go into, what is it about our justice system that causes people to be afraid? If we talk about Black Lives Matter, for example, we know that, African American men are 3 times more likely to experience, police brutality than someone who's Caucasian like myself. And so it's really important that regardless of your topic and regardless of your point of view, that you do get those perspectives that are different from your own, that you do consider them as respectfully as you can, and that you do evaluate why do people believe the things they do. Okay? So to give an even more extreme example, let's consider neo-Nazis. As a group, neo-Nazis are reprehensible. They are promoting hate, they are promoting racism. And if I was going to do a paper on them, there is no way I would agree with the, anti-Semitic and, anti-African American types of views that they espouse. But I would want to go into why do they espouse these views? Why are they promoting this? What economic factors lead to individuals to become more likely to be racist, to become more likely to fear immigration? So with that, as always, please let me know of any questions. One thing to bear in mind is that every topic is going to be complex. Every topic is going to require a large variety of perspectives. And you don't want to fall into the trap of just repeating your own perspectives. All right, so as always, let me know questions.